Thank you for joining us, Society to Flourish and Thrive. My name is Dr. Leong, and I will be your MC for this webinar. In today's fast-paced world, especially after the challenges of COVID-19, some may feel that they are often in a state of tension and uneasiness. This disease, widely known as anxiety, can occur with low mood. They can both affect our well-being, health, and relationships with our loved ones. The implications are far-reaching, and hence it is important we take care of not just our physical health, but also our mental health. Now, some of us might find ourselves going through the motions on a daily basis, just trying our best to make it through another day of work and never-ending deadlines. Just get through it. Another day of caring for a loved one and endless chores. Just get through it. Another day of keeping up appearances and tolerating impossible weights. But life isn't just about surviving and getting by. Life is about learning to truly thrive and maximizing our potential in terms of aspirations, abilities, and hence, most importantly, our mental health. In today's forum, we will explore the concept of positive psychology for self-care. We will discover rejuvenating activity through the power of meaning-making and learn how we can anchor ourselves amidst anxiety to flourish and thrive. After the presentations, there will be a Q&A session where our speakers will answer some of your questions posted in the Q&A box. As this webinar is recorded, please be reminded not to reveal any personal or confidential information. Without further ado, let me introduce our first speaker for today, Ms. Ang Yue Ying. Yue Ying is a clinical psychologist with the Department of Clinical Psychology at Changi General Hospital. After completing her master's in psychology, she worked with children and adolescents who are survivors of abuse and domestic violence at the Ministry of Social and Family Development, including supporting parents, schools, as well as foster parents. Subsequently, she went on to work with youths and adults in the community, treating individuals with mental health conditions who often present with complex trauma. At Changi General Hospital, she provides psychotherapy to youth and adults who present with a diverse range of mental health conditions or challenges. Yue Ying will be sharing about positive psychology for self-care today. So let's welcome Yue Ying, please.
Thank you, Dr. Leong, for the introduction. For the next 20 minutes, I will be taking you through concepts of positive psychology and the importance of self-care. Okay, so many of us who, or many of people out there who are caring for their loved ones, they often say that they feel it's selfish to spend time on themselves, to care for themselves, especially when they have their children, their parents, their elderly parents to care for, whoever their loved ones are they're caring for. Okay, and we also always hear that people think that self-care is a luxury, that they only can afford it if they have the luxury of time. Or they often think that it's only when they feel very lousy, or only when they think they need it, or when they're not well, then they would think self-care is important. But that's not true. Self-care is not selfish. We need to be able to care for ourselves before we can care for others, right? We need to actively set the time for it, to plan for it. And it should be practiced regularly to prevent burnout and maintain our well-being. Okay. So what is burnout? It is actually a chronic workplace stress when it has not been successfully managed. The symptoms of it can be very similar to symptoms of depression, where people feel very negative, feel very pessimistic, and feel very hopeless. But the difference with burnout is that it is very work related. So many people who experience burnout, when they leave their jobs, their symptoms go away. But in depression, the symptoms stay because it's a lot more pervasive, and it applies to basically other aspects of their life. So yeah, look at this list. Does it seem familiar to you? And just take a look. And do you think that you experience some of this? Do you always feel tired no matter how much you rest? Do you feel a lot more irritable? Or colloquially, we say big tick, right? Do you put in many hours of work but not getting much done? The signs and symptoms may be subtle at first, but as time goes on, it can get worse and it lead to, and if we don't act fast enough, it can lead to major problems. So there are many causes of burnout. We will not go through all of them in the interest of time, all right? But I'll just like to highlight a few personal factors, right? In our society, we pride being conscientious. We pride ourselves for our high quality of work, right? But as with everything, moderation is key. We don't want to take things to the extreme where we have such high expectations of ourselves such that anything short of perfection would be unbearable. Some people have no activities out of work, which may then contribute to them being emotionally dependent on the outcomes of their work. And we know that this will not bode well. So moderation is key. Yeah. The good news is if you're already feeling burnt out, if a lot of the symptoms that I talked about, I showed on the screen earlier seems very familiar to you, good news is that the effects of burnout can be reversed, all right? With self-care, studies have shown that, and similarly, of course, we don't want to wait till we are burnout, right? So similarly, self-care can prevent burnout. And what self-care really means, it's quite literal, is to take care of yourselves, to nourish yourself in the various aspects. Yes, so you can take care of yourself physically, professionally, even in your relationships, spiritually. But in today's, for the purpose of my talk today, I'll focus on the psychological and emotional side of self-care. So some of you may be thinking, well, if burnout is work-related, I don't work, so I have no problems, and I can just watch my Korean dramas all day. Well, that's unfortunately not the case. So yes, we may not feel depressed, we may not be burnout, but does that mean we are fulfilled and happy? There are various degrees of depression and sadness. Are there no different degrees of happiness, fulfillment, and well-being as well? Of course there is, right? So this may sound quite familiar to many of us, where we are not quite depressed, we are not sad, but we are not happy either. We are not lonely, but we are not excited or enthusiastic about things. Things are generally indifferent to us, right? We just trudge through our days, aimless and uninspired and bored, right? When people ask, hey, how are you? You reply with the dreaded, I'm okay. Or even more colloquially, you go, sian lo, right? If this sounds familiar to you, yeah, there's a term for this. It's called languishing. You can't put a finger to quite what's wrong, but you can't say I'm okay either. Right? And this is the emotion that many of us are probably experiencing in 2020, 2021. So the absence of poor mental health does not mean good mental health, right? So the role of positive psychology is to move people in the yellow and red area, so with poor mental health, towards flourishing, the purple area. It's to look beyond suffering and correcting symptoms. It studies the process that promotes the well-being and optimal functioning. And the goal is to help one thrive and not just survive. That is also our theme for this year's World Mental Health Day. Okay. So positive psychology emphasizes on meaning and deep satisfaction. It is not just on fleeting happiness, right? It is not realistic to be happy all the time. It's just not possible, right? So positive psychology look at what is right, what is our strengths, right? It acknowledges our weaknesses, but we want to focus on the strengths to engage us, to help us move towards fulfillment and life satisfaction. it's not a prescription. It doesn't tell you what you must do, but it actually helps people understand what helps promote their well-being. So think about it as like you're trying to plant a rose, right, in your garden. So planting roses in your garden, right? Apart from taking out the weeds, you need to nourish it, right? You need to give it the right conditions, to give it nutrients, to give it sunlight, to give it adequate water, in order for it to flourish. This is the same for humans, okay? And that we need the enabling conditions for us to thrive. So I'll take you through 2 exercises that we can use to promote better psychological well-being. Excuse me. Okay. So the first exercise, it's the 3 good things, right? By the way, positive psychology is founded by this person called Martin Seligman, but it's okay. We'll just talk about the exercise, which is of course by him as well. So evolutionary, humans, mammals, we need to be attuned to bad things for dangers to survive. So this exercise is also called the 3 good things. It is also known as the gratitude journal, as some of you may be familiar with. It is basically to look out for 3 good things every day to help us hunt for the positives, to help us to train our brains to keep a lookout for the positives so that we can be more balanced in our perspective. Yes, please go. Next, please. Yes. So think about this morning. Well, the day just started. So maybe think about yesterday. Okay. What are the 3 good things you can be thankful for, no matter big or small, right? It doesn't have to be big, earth-shattering things like you got a promotion. It can be very mundane, day-to-day things that you feel you can be happy about, be proud about, be grateful about, or even just makes you less stressed, all right? So think about things, about 3 things that you can be thankful for that, gives you some positive emotions. Next. Yeah. So try and do this every day before bedtime for a month. Next. If you are stuck, you can take some of these examples. They are day-to-day things that I've collected, right? So it can be, making a healthy breakfast for yourself, or lunch, or having your favorite nasi lemak, right? If you are stuck, start from food, our national pastime, having the food, right? You can be thankful for taking the time to take a stroll through the park, through the gardens. If you manage to take 5 to 10 minutes just to pay attention to your breath, just to be mindful of your breath, right? You can be grateful for that. You can be grateful for the clear blue skies or sunshine. We can talk about, we can think about, on a cold, chilly evening, right? A warm shower that you have, or perhaps even on a very warm and humid day, when you step into the mall with a very efficient air conditioning, you certainly can be thankful for that. Okay, when you're sipping your favorite cup of coffee or tea, yes, you can be thankful for that. So these are just some examples, but you're not limited to these. Next, please. So as you think about the 3 good things, and if you have already thought of them, you may wish to then ask, what went well? What does this mean to you? And how can you have more of this in future? Okay, sometimes if it's too difficult and if it doesn't apply, it's okay. You can just start with the 3 good things. And over time, it can get quite difficult for some at first, but if you practice this regularly, it can get better over time. And you can just think about it, okay? But if you have the luxury of pen and paper beside you, or even your phone, you can use it to, record down these things. But if you don't scramble for one now. You can just think about it. Next, please. So, this is an example. If you had a short phone call with a friend today, okay, then you can think about why did that happen, or how did that happen? Next, please. Yeah, just keep clicking until the end of the slide. Yes. So you can think about why this good thing happened because you took the effort and time. You can think about what this means to you, but how because this friendship is important to you. Okay. You can then ask, okay, how can we have more of this in future? And this is important, right? Because you took the initiative to initiate contact, right? Or your friend did, then you can express appreciation for that so that you can have more of this in future. Next, please. So more examples. Okay, go on. If you don't have the whys, you don't have the hows, it's okay. You just start with 3 good things. Slowly that can happen. So for example, like, clear, appreciative of clear blue skies and, sunshine. If you struggle with the how and why, it's okay. Maybe the how it's that because you stepped out. But if there isn't, then it's okay. You still can be thankful. But if you took the effort to go out, to go for a stroll, to eat healthy, then you can give yourself the credit for it. It's important for you to give yourself the credit for it. Next, please. Next, please. Yes, so basically we're trying to create a positive spiral, right? An outward spiral. Basically why you do that is to look out for 3 good things. Is that, in her hopes that these things would create more positive emotions. And as we have more positive emotions, when we are trained to look out for the positives, we are then more inclined to try new things, to look out for new things, to look out for positive things, and to basically increase our activities, right? When that happens over time, it helps us build our resources, our social support, build up our skills and knowledge, such that it's more enduring. These resources are more enduring over time. And over time, it helps us with, our health, our fulfillment, and it can actually promote resilience in the event of adversity. In life, we can't escape that things will happen, bad things will happen. And when that happens, we want to have enough resources to help us bounce back up. Next, please. So the next exercise we'll be talking about will be the self-compassion exercise. It is developed by one of the researchers, Dr. Kristin Neff, on the self-compassionate exercise. What it aims to do is for us to be kind to ourselves, especially during times where we feel incompetent. Many of us do, all right? Most of us experience that from time to time. We feel incompetent, we beat ourselves up over things, when we feel like we're not adequate enough, when we experience failures, right? We beat ourselves over it, thinking that, it's just us. But many of us experience this, and we can really just be more compassionate with ourselves, to just be kinder to ourselves, right? Because we are not alone, we're just humans and we are imperfect. Next, please. So why be self-compassionate? It is not going into a pity party, right? It isn't being indulgent in the sadness, but it's quite the contrary. Being compassionate with ourselves allows us to take a step back and help us be more balanced, right? We acknowledge that things are not okay, things are not going right, but that's part of life and part of common humanity. It actually helps decrease our stress, help promote, positive emotion. And with that, we are more motivated to work on our goals because we want to, because it's meaningful to us, because we believe in it, and not because we are of fear, right? That actually helps us to move towards our goals. And in doing so, okay, it helps us with healthier lifestyles, healthier habits. We are more encouraged to eat healthy, quit certain unhelpful or unhealthy behaviors like smoking, drinking, and excessively. Okay, it helps us to cope better with difficult experiences. Next, please. So instead of being critical with ourselves, judging ourselves, why not be warm and gentle and be supportive? Thinking that, hey, this is about me, okay? Why not think that all humans are imperfect? I'm not alone. We all make mistakes and we all experience difficulties. Getting caught up with instead of getting caught up and spiraling with your negative thoughts and feelings and suppressing them, why not observe them without observe them without judgment. Next. If you're comfortable, okay, perhaps close your eyes. I'll talk you through this exercise. Think of a time or a situation where things are difficult for you. When you felt incompetent, when you felt that, things are not going right, you're beating yourself up for it, you feel inadequate, okay? Think of that time and how you may be feeling. There may be few incidents, but think of one that is suitable for our exercise today. Okay? When you have this situation, I'll like you to think, just experience that feeling that you have, okay? And now take one hand, perhaps your right hand, and put it over your chest, on top of your heart. So put it over your heart and give it like a gentle pressure. Okay. Feel the gentle pressure and feel the warmth of the pressure on your chest. Okay. Now say to yourself, this is a moment of pain. Pain is part of life. I'm not alone. Let me be kind to myself in this moment. Let me give myself the compassion I need. Let me be patient. So take a minute to experience this, how you feel when you're compassionate with yourself. When you're ready, gently open your eyes. Next, please. So it comes to the end of my talk. I apologize for any the technical errors and if it hasn't been very clear. I'll take questions later on, but remember to breathe and go slowly, thrive and not just survive. There are many activities that can promote our well-being. I can only name 2 of them today, but there is many more. So take the time, explore what works for you, what makes you feel fulfilled, and what promotes your well-being. Thank you. Next. Now I'll hand back the time to Dr. Leong. Dr. Leong, please.
Thank you very much for that, Yue Ying. That was very, very insightful. Compassion to ourselves, not just to others. I think that's a great point you shared. So thank you for sharing about the concept of positive psychology, Yue Ying, and what it means to flourish. If you have any questions for Yue Ying, please post them in the Q&A box. They will be answered at the end, after all the speakers have given their talks. Our next speaker is Ms. Ang Yue. She is an occupational therapist with the Department of Rehabilitative Services at Changi General Hospital. So Elisa is a mental health occupational therapist specifically. She works closely with people with mental health concerns, such as stress, mood disorders, such as depression, anxiety, and bipolar and personality disorders. In her daily work, she teaches her patients coping skills, including stress management techniques, relaxation, and self-care skills. She also practices different therapeutic modalities and activities to engage her patients. She will be speaking about activities that spark joy in today's webinar forum. Elisa, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Leong. Just good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on the webinar. So my name is Alyssa. I'm working at Changi General Hospital as an occupational therapist. So today I'll be presenting on the topic of pursuing activities that spark joy. All right. Click next. Yep. So before we start, let me just give you all a brief outline for this part of the webinar. Firstly, we'll be answering the question on why do we need to pursue activities that spark joy? What are the benefits of engaging in these activities? And followed by a section of truth and false, where we debunk some of the myths around activities that spark joy, also known as self-care activities. And we will then go through how we can go about identifying these activities and how we can kickstart this process. So, be it consciously or unconsciously, we all have our own rhythms and routines in life, be it the time we wake up or the time we sleep, or whether we brush our teeth before or after our breakfast. These activities helps to organize and shape our lives. It forms our routines, our habits, and our roles. And activities often also give us a sense of identity, be it as a parent, as a grandparent, or as a teacher or a caregiver. And it also gives us a purpose. So without meaningful activities in life, we can often feel lost. So engaging in activities that spark joy can contribute positively to our physical, social, emotional, and mental well-being. So just think back to a time perhaps where you had an enjoyable outing with your friend or family. How do you feel? As your family or friendship ties are strengthened, do you feel more satisfied with life and feel more secure? Or perhaps think back to the last time where you had a good workout. How did your body feel? Do you feel more refreshed? Activities that spark joy can have many positive effects to us humans. Engaging in different types of activity that spark joy can also help to maintain a good balance between work and play. And it is also a form of self-care. So we often hear this word self-care being thrown around. So what does it actually mean? So let's just go back to a good old definition. So self-care is defined as any activity that we do deliberately in order to take care of our mental, emotional, and physical health. So notice how it's not just one specific one-size-fits-all activity. It differs from person to person according to the person's interests, personality, availability, and much more factors. So hence, pursuing activities that spark joy is just another way of starting this self-care journey. So another point to note is that sometimes that something that we do deliberately, sometimes that requires us to plan and set aside time to participate in, especially in this time and age where we are often bombarded by many other commitments. So as part of this webinar, you might say to me, Alyssa, well, while all this is important, I don't really have much time to do this. So if you may allow me to just present a few more benefits that might potentially change your mind. So as humans, our mind, body, and emotions are all connected. In this current day and age, we are living in a highly stressful environment. And as our minds are constantly thinking about the next problem we need to solve, our body is also responding. So there are primarily two types of physiological response that our body have. And when faced with an acute stress or threat, it triggers the fight or flight response. And this signals to our body to release a stress hormone called cortisol, which actually increases our rate of breathing, our heart rate, our blood pressure. And this response is meant to be a short-term response, which resolves after the danger or the threat is resolved. However, if we are chronically experiencing stress, it can actually perpetuate this fight or flight response, and it may lead to adverse effects on health. So the second type of response is actually the rest and relax response. So when we are in a chronic stress state, our relaxed response can be very desensitized, ignored, or forgotten. So engaging in self-care activities or activities that spark joy can actually help to kick in this rest and relax response. Instead, where the body is more relaxed, where your breathing might be slower, your heart rate might slow down, and your blood pressure might eventually then drop as well. So I hope that this point might be a little bit more convincing to the audience that pursuing activities that spark joy can help us thrive a little more. So you have been hearing me speak for quite a while now. So now is the time for the session of truth and false. So this is where I invite you to join in. We're going to go through a series, 3 questions. I'm going to start this poll where you are able to answer. After I flash the statement, you are able to click whether you think this is a true statement or this is a false statement. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead to start the poll first. All right, so the first question we have, engaging in self-care activities is selfish and self-indulgent. So what you can do is just click the true or false button depending on what you think the answer is. I'm getting some response. I will close it in about 5 seconds time. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Last button. Okay, I'm going to end the poll right now. Okay, so what I'm seeing is that about 92% of you have responded that this is a false statement, and about 8% of you think that it's true. So I'm going to end the poll now. Okay. So for the 92% of you, the answer is the right answer is false. So engaging in self-care activity is not is actually self-respect and self-preservation. So in our busy schedule, we can feel like taking time out for ourselves is selfish, but really contrary to this, pursuing activities that spark joy is a form of self-respect and self-preservation, and we have to take care of ourselves before we can take care of others. All right, the next question, I'm gonna have the next poll. Okay, I'm gonna launch the poll. Get ready for the question that might appear now. Okay. It is more needful to engage in activities that spark joy when I'm stressed or feeling down. Is this true or is this false? Okay, I'll give you maybe another 5 seconds to respond. It is more needful to engage in activities that spark joy when I'm stressed or feeling down. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, what I see is that 92% of you said that this is a true statement and 8% says false. All right, I want to congratulate the 8% who said that this is false. So this is a bit of a trick question. Let me debunk this. So our self-care plan should be integrated into our day-to-day routine and practiced regularly as a way to prevent burnout. So it should not just be something you do when you are feeling very stressed. It should be something that we do in our day-to-day, every single day, just to prevent everyday stresses. Okay, now we have the last question. Let's go. Launch. All right. The question is, I can only engage in activities that spark joy when I'm free, as it will take up a large chunk of time. All right, I think you guys are getting good at this poll thing. I can see your response are streaming in. Okay, 3 more seconds. 3, 2, and 1. Okay, what I can see is that 93% of you said that this is a false statement, and 7% of you said that this is true. All right, and the answer is false. Not sure if, I think most of you got it right. So participating in activities that spark joy means deliberately taking time out to do activities that energizes us. So it can be just taking a 5-minute break in the midst of the day, or simply setting aside time for a proper meal. So it does not always have to take up a large chunk of time. That's something that I wanted to debunk, so that we can all have a bit more confidence in pursuing some activities that may just take a short time. Okay, so debunked. Oh, sorry, I didn't press that slide, but yes. Okay, next. So then the next question will be, how do we find activities that spark joy? So now that we understand a little bit about what does pursuing activities that spark joy mean, so how can we find or identify these activities? So there are 3 ways that we can start. First is to identify current scheduled activities that bring joy, or pursuing interests such as maybe art, reading, nature, history, or perhaps you can also start by identifying meaningful roles that we are already currently having. So I'll elaborate a little bit more in the following slides. Okay, so identifying current scheduled activities that bring joy. So one of the ways to start off is to look through your current schedule and just identify if there's any activities that you are already engaged in that brings you joy. So notice if there are any activities that actually energizes you or make you feel refreshed. So it can be as simple as going for a massage or facial, or maybe when you meet up with your friends, or just taking a breather. Okay, so consider these activities that have a low barrier of entry, meaning that it is easily accessible and easy to complete in some sense, and consider activities that can be practiced regularly, perhaps 2 to 3 times a week. The next point is pursuing interests. So alternatively, we can also think about what are some of our interests, our topics that we enjoy. So be it nature, music, sport, history, or even fashion or technology. So consider what are some activities related to these topics that we can pursue. For example, if you enjoy music, consider if you can pick up vocal singing skills online, or even trying your hand at songwriting, or perhaps you would like to find out if there are any free concerts that you might want to attend. So, or if you enjoy nature, considering related activities like perhaps gardening. So the last one is to identify meaningful roles. So in life, we often wear many hats. Another avenue to find activities that spark joy is to identify what are some roles in our lives that we find meaningful. Example, as a grandparent, or as a teacher, or as an athlete, or even as a gamer, or as a friend. And from there, we can brainstorm activities that can enhance these roles. So be spending time talking to your friends about your favorite K-drama, to spending time honing your skills in painting or art expression. These are all ways to find activities that spark joy. So do not worry if you feel that you are unable to identify any activities that spark joy at this current juncture. So there is a poster here of 50 ways that you can possibly do to take a break. And also is also the same as an activity that sparks joy. So let's just take a few seconds to screen through and identify one way we can take a break. So on this poster, we can see many different activities that perhaps we might not have think of, or you might already be doing it, but you're not aware of. So just allow me to demonstrate. So on this 50 ways to take a break, I quite identify with taking deep belly breaths. So I often find myself just feeling quite overwhelmed with things and my mind is running. So sometimes what I do is I will find somewhere where I can sit down, and if not, just a quieter place where I can focus on my breath and just slow down my breathing. Yeah, so what I do is I just sit somewhere quiet and I just gently breathe in through my nose and just blow out through my mouth. And just take a mindful breath and take a short break. So if you're unsure about which activity to start with, perhaps you can consider this. All right, last slide. I just want to give you some tips to get started. So finding what makes you feel centered. It's not a one-size-fits-all. So find out what brings you joy, whether it's just the color of pink, the smell of coffee, or just pampering yourself with a good massage. It just starts small, make it easier for us to form this habit, be it doing it for 5 minutes a day or just doing the activity in small parts. And we can also brainstorm how you can incorporate activities that spark joy into your daily life and when you are most likely able to complete it. So set yourself up for success. So just come up with a goal of how often and when you will do it and make it realistic. And to evaluate it is just after maybe about a week, just reflect on how you are feeling and note any positive benefits. And use this to maintain the routine of engaging in activities that spark joy throughout the month. Lastly, adjust and tweak your approach as you go. Our needs change over time. What might bring joy in one period might be less so in another period. So we might therefore need to explore other activities that spark joy. And with that, I come to the end of my sharing. Just thank you for your attention, and I'll just hand the time over to Dr. Leong.
Thank you, Elisa, for debunking myths around self-care and highlighting how the power of activities that spark joy can help us feel more refreshed and centered. I think for me, it would be a coffee break for sure. Making it part of our daily routine as well. That was a really interesting point. Thank you for that. So if you have any questions for Elisa, please post them in the Q&A box. We'll answer them later. The next speaker is Ms. Dorcas Won, our Master Medical Social Worker at Changi General Hospital. So Dorcas is the medical social worker lead for patients with mental health conditions at the hospital. As a clinician and a generalist with a specialty in mental health, she provides psycho-emotional and practical support to patients and their families. And she also works closely with community partners to advocate for their care and safe discharge. Dorcas will be sharing more about how you can make meaning and thrive as a caregiver. Dorcas, please.
Thank you, Dr. Leong, for the wonderful introductions. The topics of thriving as a caregiver, the power of meaning making, is very close to my heart. On the professional front, as a medical social worker, I see patients and their families as caregiver to deal with their psychosocial, emotional, and practical issues. At the personal level, I'm a caregiver to 2 family members. Let me first begin by defining who caregivers are and providing an overview of caregiving in Singapore. Caregivers are persons who provide care to an individual requiring support due to age, disability, illness, or special needs. Their care provisions include physical care, psychological care, social-emotional care, and financial support that assist the care recipient's day-to-day activities, perform a range of tasks including providing personal care, performing tasks inside and outside the home, such as reading newspaper to the care recipient, bringing them out for a haircut or social activities, and arranging for transportation and medical care. Informal caregivers refer to any individuals who provide care to someone, typically a family member, with whom they have a personal relationship. For instance, a son cares for his aged parents, a mother cares for her special needs child. Formal caregivers are individuals who are paid for the care and supports they provide to the care recipients and have training and education in providing the care. Examples of formal caregivers are home health service, nursing home staff. However, they are not the focus of the talk today. According to Ministry of Manpower's Labour Force Survey in 2022, among residents outside the labour force, 90,300 residents cited caregiving responsibility for families or relatives as a main reason for not working in 2022. Of these residents, 89.4% were female and 10.6% were male caregivers. 12,400 of these caregivers were looking after their aged, ill, or disabled parents. 46% were aged 50 to 59, and 46% were singles. Caregivers contribute significantly to care for and support their loved one. They often devote much of their love, time, and energy to this task while coping with their own daily challenges. Some may experience huge life transition by taking on caregiving role unexpectedly. This new duty as caregiver can cause stress, anxiety, uncertainty, and fear, and come with a long list of things to learn about their loved one's condition, their needs, and master on the way to care for them. Some have to leave their full-time job and become caregiver to their loved ones. Caregiving experience can be varied and unique to each caregiver given the different circumstances they are in. I would like to use metaphors to describe some caregiving experiences that I observed at the course of my encounter with them. First, is the metaphors of bamboo. Bamboo is flexible and lightweight and stronger than steel and most hardwood. Despite ongoing challenges faced in caregiving, caregiver remains strong and not easily break. Just like the bamboo, caregivers stand tall, grow stronger, and stay green year-round. I remember that a caregiver whom I saw recently, that she shared with me that she has her own medical condition. She was scheduled for a day surgery for a minor procedure. However, on the day of day surgery, her husband was admitted to a hospital, and she rushed to the hospital to visit her husband before going for her day surgery. After the day surgery, no one fetched her home. Instead, she visited her husband again before returning home. Despite getting the hospitalization leave, rested at home, she quickly resumed attending to her son and her familiar tasks. And this is truly an example of when storm comes, like a bamboo, she bends with winds, though remains steadfast. And next metaphors I want to share is fire extinguishers. When you see fire extinguishers, what comes to your mind? Danger, crisis, emergency. When crisis happen in the course of caregiving, caregivers take courage to problem solve. They run to hospital when care recipients fall ill or have a fall. I recall that I made a phone call to a caregiver, and this caregiver said, Miss Wong, I can't talk to you now, and asked her what happened. She said that, there's a crisis at home. I asked, is there anything that I can help? And she explained that this crisis at home, in which she had to clear the mess at home due to the care recipients bowel incontinence. She had to clean the bedroom, wash the toilet, mop the floor, remove the unpleasant smell in the flat while attending to the care recipient's care needs. Metaphorically, caregivers fight fire, act fast to deal with the crisis. When caregivers are new to the caregiving role, they are like without anger, drifting without direction, feeling vulnerable, uncertainty, and fear. As they press on along the caregiving journey, they gradually find the anchor in life that provide them purpose and meaning. Caregivers are like stones that fishing balance in many different roles that they are playing. Each stone represents a different role, each such as caregiver, parents, spouse, employee, and friend. A caregiver who is a mother of 2 children share that though the stones are in different sizes and shape, and some are heavier than others, all these roles are important to her. She endeavors to maintain a balance between her family responsibility, work commitment, and caring for her husband who is a stroke patient. Caregiving can be satisfying and rewarding, and at times difficult work. It's not only the task of doing, but also the task of coping, figuring out creative solutions, or even trying to keep their head above the water. They are like the flower growing out from the concrete, demonstrated strength, resilience, and unwavering dedication in caring for others in the face of challenges. Now, let's pause for a few moments. After hearing this metaphor, what are the thoughts that come to your mind? Have you wondered what are their inner drive for caregiving? How they keep their bamboo green year-round? What made their caregiving journey a thriving one amidst ongoing challenges? How do caregivers make sense of their caregiving experiences? It is crucial for caregivers to remain focused, center on their purpose of caregiving, find the meaning making in the act of caregiving, and be mindful of the impact of their experience on themselves. And let me share with you what is the meaning making. Meaning making refers to how individuals control, understand, and make sense of life events. Through meaning making, people are retaining, reframing, revisiting, or replacing elements of their orienting system to develop more nuanced, complex, and useful system. Meaning making is a process by which you re-evaluate your sense of meaning after a problems or stressful situation, interpret your life experiences, and align your new normal with your previously held goals and beliefs. Meaning making is a powerful process that impacts our caregiving journey. It's helped to enhance empathy and patience. Caregivers can fully engage with the care recipient, being present, enhance empathy, understanding, and develop a stronger emotional connection. They become more patient, having higher tolerance level, reducing the likelihood of becoming overwhelmed by the demands of their roles. Meaning making is crucial in negative situation. According to meaning making model, when encountering stressful situation, people are likely to cope with the stressful situation by reappraising the situation, seeking a more positive understanding of the situation and its implications. As caregivers, make meaning in response to the stressful situation and thereby lead to better adjustment and improved coping. By making sense of the act of caregiving, caregivers see beyond the task. They are more aware of why they are doing what they are doing, in which reaffirm their sense of purposefulness. They may not perceive caregiving as no choice, but a thoughtful decision made by themselves, possibly due to love, filial piety, and gratitude. One of the 2023 Caregiver Award recipients who shared about her caregiving experience said this: "While the caregiving journey has been challenging, I always tell myself that each day I spend with my mother is a day that we can never get back. Indeed, there is a great sense of purposefulness in caregiving." Meaning-making also enables caregivers to make more rational and thoughtful decisions. When faced with challenging situations of tough choices, they reappraise the meaning of stressor, respond in a calm manner, and seek out for clarity and understanding. Meaning-making in caregiving experience can lead to personal growth and wellness, such as positive reframing, learning new knowledge and skill in caregiving, and becoming more resilient as they constantly adjust themselves to provide better care. And now, I would like to introduce to you 3R, which is reflect, reconnect, and rekindle. And these 3R is to help caregivers to derive meaning from their caregiving journey. And the first R, reflect on our caregiving journey. Here are some guiding questions for reflection. How did I start on this journey? How did I take up the caregiving role? What are some of the challenges I face as a caregiver? How has the adjustment been like? And second R, reconnect. Reconnect our caregiving experiences with our value, belief, and sense of purpose and meaning. Caregiver can ask questions like, what matters to me? What is my motivations or inner drive? How do I make sense of my experience and stressor? Is this a strong sense of love and filial duty that motivate me to continue to care? After making sense of caregiving experience, it enables caregivers to accept, restore, and adjust their sense of meaning in life. And the third R, rekindle our caregiving journey. What do we do? How do we rekindle our caregiving journey? As we meaning make, there's a paradigm shift to focus on positive aspect of caregiving, no longer as having no choice, but a well thought out decision. We perform the same task and role, but it with a brand new us, with a great sense of purpose and meaning. Similar events or crisis happen, but we dealt it with new lens, new perspective, accept it as a part and parcel of caregiving. We acknowledge and accept this difficult yet fulfilling caregiving journey. While meaning-making can happen any moment, any phases of our caregiving journey, here are some thoughts. Here are some tips for everyday use. Pause for a few moments once every day when you are in a beautiful environment and savor the beauty of your surrounding. It could be the flowers that you plant, put at the balcony, or it could be when you are going down to the white deck, to the neighboring amenity. Just enjoy the experience that you have. Pause a few moments. In the day filled with tasks and responsibility, it is essential to engage in self-care activities that spark joy. Caregivers need to establish a care routine and also time for themselves, even if it's just 50 minutes or half an hour in a day. Earlier on, my colleagues have shared many activities that spark joy, which you may want to try after this forum. Next is find humor amidst chaos. Laughter, often cited as the best method, holds profound significance for caregivers. I recall the experience of doing wound dressing for my loved one. We both laugh over the mess that we made, and we joke about my experience as though like serving the king when we're doing the wound dressing. Yeah. And caregiver can also co-create sweet memory with their care recipients. It could be a shared joke, engage in light-hearted TV show, share story, create a cookbook by writing down the recipes of family's favorite dishes, complete the photo album project to capture the fond memories together. And last but not least, is to seek out support. Caregivers should not hesitate to ask for help, given the numerous responsibility that must undertake. They can seek out support from their families and relatives. Extra pairs of hands are always helpful. Support could come in the form of respite care or simple tasks such as buying the grocery or food. Family members can take turns to accompany the care recipients for medical appointments. This can give the caregiver some time and rest for themselves. Besides garner support from families and relatives, caregiver can also tap on the professional support such as community support services. In conclusion, caregivers contribute significantly to care and support their loved one. The meaning making can help caregivers create meaning, facilitate coping, and bring positive impact to their well-being. I would like to end this talk by sharing these Chinese ink paintings that I drew amidst the stressful events that happened one after another to my care recipients recently. I like this drawing very much because it's a sunflower symbolize unwavering faith and constant orientation towards the light. They are often associated with strength, positivity, happiness, and optimism. May these pictures that I share with you, that you like me, that continue with this caregiving journey to strive and flourish. And this is my end of the talk. And I would like to hand over the time back to Dr. Jenny. Dr. Leong, please, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dorcas, for sharing your insights on how purpose and meaning can enhance well-being during the caregiving journey. I do agree it's very important that caregivers ask for help wherever it's available to support themselves as well. So if you have any questions for Dorcas, please post them in the Q&A box. Again, we'll answer them at the end of the webinar. And for those of you who have raised your hands, please do post your questions in the Q&A box instead. Yeah, we'll get to them later. Okay, so our final speaker for today is Dr. Sanjeev Nair. He is an associate consultant with the Department of Psychological Medicine at Changi General Hospital, my good colleague. He obtained his medical degree from the National University of Singapore, Yong Lu Lin School of Medicine in 2015. And then he became a member of the Royal College of Psychiatrists in 2019. Dr. Sanjeev provides specialist psychiatric consultations for adults and adolescents. He conducts individual and group psychodynamic psychotherapy as part of the complex needs service at Changi General Hospital, and is actively involved in teaching and liaison work with community mental health providers. Today, you can anchor yourself amidst anxiety. So let us welcome Dr. Sanjeev, please.
Right. So hope you can see my screen. Okay. So, well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Janine. It's so wonderful. In a span of an hour, we've heard from different colleagues in this service that we have. I feel quite grateful. I'm part of this wonderful service in the hospital. My talk today will be about figuring out how we can anchor ourselves amidst anxiety. And we'll talk a bit more about anxiety and how really it's so commonplace. And it's not about removing it, but really trying to figure out how to stabilize ourselves and kind of do the best that we can, really, with situations that we cannot really control. And that's just the reality. Okay, so my name is Sanjeev and I work with the Department of Psychological Medicine here at Changi. And we, as part of our service, as you realize here, we just don't have, just a psychiatrist or a psychologist. We also have occupational therapists, we have a social worker. So it's a multidisciplinary team. We have so many different things going on. And this is one of the misconceptions about mental health. People think that if you go and seek help means someone's going to throw you some medication. That's just not true, right? And mental health is so broad. There's so many different things and so many different stages at where you can be in terms of your care needs. Yeah, one person may be having very severe illness, and the treatment recommendation and the kind of help that they need is a bit different. Maybe someone is they're doing pretty okay, but they're struggling on a day-to-day, that they want to do a bit better and they feel that they're just struggling a bit, but they're not really ill as such. And so the advice will be very different. As you can imagine, like for example, we tell someone that, exercise is a good thing for your health. And that's true, isn't it? We want to try to exercise. But if you go to someone in the hospital, they're lying down, they're so sick, and you go and tell them, hey, you should exercise. That's very cruel, isn't it? So it really depends on the degree of severity, which is why one of the first things, if you are in trouble and you want some consultation, seeking out help, having a conversation with a person, a professional, engaging the services is important. And so I just want to start my talk out with that, because I'm going to give brief kind of guidelines, and not to say that, this would apply to everyone, especially if the kind of help that you need is a bit more intense. And in the hospital, we deal with the whole spectrum of illness. Yeah. And but today I want to look a bit about, anxiety specifically. What is anxiety? Anxiety is the word is ubiquitous everywhere. All the time, there's something that seems to be threatening. Yeah, it is a kind of normal response within the body, in a way, to protect ourselves. And it's there really, in a way, to remind every part of our body, the systems, to engage fully if there is something that is threatening or something that is dangerous. Except the problem is, if this system is activated throughout the day, even when there is no danger, then it becomes a bit of a problem. So for example, if you're sitting alone, no issue, right? Sitting alone, maybe you're trying to fall asleep, but you find that your mind is just racing, it's just going and going. But that's a problem. That's anxiety that needs to be either helped or treated or engaged with. Yeah, that's not normal anxiety anymore. I know some of the Q&As so far today, we know that good stress, there's a healthy amount of stress, but how do we know when it's a bit more overboard? And that is the fine line, because it really depends. But come a point where you feel you're really suffering, then we reflect to ourselves that, hey, listen, we're not really coping well. How do we know? Simple basic functions in our day-to-day activities get affected. Our sleep gets affected. Our performance every day with our family members at work, these things get affected. Yeah. And the other thing is that deeply within ourselves, our own subjective experience, we feel that we're really suffering. And that's another kind of maybe a reminder to attend to this problem. All right. But having said that, because it is very prevalent, it's something that is so common, it is so much part of our lives, it's not very helpful to talk about curing anxiety, right? People talk about, can we cure anxiety? Can we get rid of it? That's not really helpful as such, because frankly, for most of us, it's not very realistic to think about being so zen and tranquil all the time. But we can do certain things to help us care for ourselves. This is a different model of thinking about working with anxiety. So let's move away from thinking about cure to asking ourselves, how can I care for myself? How can I care for the people around me who seem to be struggling with anxiety? Now, if we want to think about caring for ourselves, if we think about ourselves as a system, we are made out of several different things. There's the body, the physical body, all right? The physical body, by the way, takes a hit when you're feeling anxiety. Do you realize when you're anxious, your tummy gets funny, you start breathing fast, you start sweating. Some of us, if you're feeling anxious for a long period of time, we start having aches, we start having pains. So the body starts misbehaving, yeah? So that's the body. Then there's also the mind. The thinking part of us, the thing that goes on sometimes that does not give us respite, no rest, keeps going on, this monkey chattering, constantly giving dialogue, some of it good, some of it not very positive. And then there's also the spirit. You know, spirit is a bit controversial. When we say spirit, sometimes people think about it religiously. Nothing wrong with that. But maybe some of you listening in may not be particularly religious or may not have any kind of a spiritual leaning. And then you may ask yourself, what is the spirit? Now, the spirit is that thing that is animating this body. If you think about it, all right, there's this kind of ghost in this machine. If you think the machine is the body, that ghost is that spirit. Now, how you think of the spirit, whether you think about it through your religion or whether you want to think about it more in a more secular fashion, that's really up to you. But at the end of the day, if we want to treat ourselves holistically, there is no denying the spirit. We cannot kind of put it aside and just think, oh, we're going to do something to the body, figure out how to fix the mind, and then we're going to be fine. And I'll tell you why that is. Because, you know, if it's only if we attend to all three of these things simultaneously, then can we really transcend and get to ourselves where we can care for ourselves and mitigate or prevent, you know, overwhelming anxiety. All right. So with that, I'm going to give you 3 steps. Okay. So because it's a short talk, right? And you're listening in, I'm going to give you 3 steps. So something you can take away. At the end of it, you don't know anything else, nothing else you remember from what I've said, just 3 steps. Okay. So the first step is, how can we anchor? All right. Yeah. So, well, I mean, if you think about it, you are out in the ocean, you know, the seas is really quite rough. The winds are blowing, things are unpredictable. One of the things that can really help you is that you're anchored. Isn't it? Yeah. If there's something that stabilizes you, that grounds you, then no matter the situation, things can get, you know, well, things, even if the external situations are a bit rough, you are a bit steady. That's okay. So how do we anchor ourselves? I think there are 3 things here. Again, like, you know, these are my kind of summaries, and I hope this will be helpful for you. How do you anchor yourself? When you think about anchoring yourselves, first thing is the food that we eat. It's very, very important. Now, we really neglect this, right? When we think about the food we eat, I'm sure we're going to get a lot of questions. What is the best kind of food? I think that's very difficult to answer because many of us have different dietary preferences and all. But I can tell you the kind of foods you want to avoid. Okay, so it's not about what you eat, but what is it you should really reduce? Sugar, right? Processed food, things which are not natural. Now, it's not that you have to avoid completely. I mean, you know, we have lifestyles, we have things we want to do, but as far as we can, we want to eat naturally as much as we can afford it. Yeah, that's the best way to be. If you feed the body with things that are not conducive to it, then it gets shaken very easily. Yeah, your hormone levels get very dysregulated, your sugar levels get very dysregulated. Now, even if there's small stress, then you get really completely, you know, kind of dysregulated. You get completely thrown off. Okay, so these are simple things that we can do. You might think this is it's not very relevant to managing stress, but really it is. Yeah, especially because when we are stressed out, what do? We cook with unhealthy food, isn't it? Okay, so we have a bit more ice cream, we have a bit more cake and all this kind of stuff. Not wrong, not wrong, but then the price we're paying is the body gets very destabilized, right? So diet, you know, the things to avoid, the unhealthy processed food, sugars, 2 things. If we can minimize these things, it does wonders to the body, really wonders to the body. The other thing is grounding. What is grounding? Now, we all live in very artificial environment. Like most of us will live in flats, I do. And so in a flat, for example, we are removed from the ground, we are away from nature, we are in a kind of a concrete, we're surrounded by concrete all the time. And we also work in places where it's mostly buildings and again, concrete. So can we do something about it? Yes, we're so lucky in this country. There are many places where we can just go out and get greenery. Many parks, many places out there for free. No admission fee, isn't it? You can just access these places for free and getting access to greenery, lush greenery, bodies of water. Now, these things have tremendous value. You can pay a lot of money and go for relaxation and all, but at the end of the day, even like spas, for example, you know, you can pay a lot of money for that. Nothing wrong with that. But you can also go to a park for free and you're getting nature's download, you know. And even if you don't register that cognitively, you don't register that in terms of thinking, the body remembers. There's something about the body that remembers it being, you know, in places that are quite natural. There are studies to prove this. In places that are natural, heart rate goes down, you know, your breathing slows down, many different things happen. And so this is really worth investing. And finally, okay, how to ground yourself? Connect. Okay, we are social beings. One of the things that we've learned from COVID is that when we have separated from each other, it's very painful, isn't it? right? So we have to learn to invest, to connect with people who are closest to us, relationships that are meaningful to us. And this way, if we are eating right, okay, we are getting exposure to natural environments, and if we are socially connected, this is a good base. Okay, then we can say we are anchored, all right? And no matter the situation, this is an insurance against catastrophe, insurance against major mental illness. One of those things that we can do, little things that we can invest in. Okay, now step 2. All right, step 2 is affirm. Okay, so you've done, in a way, grounding. Another thing is you want to set the direction of the boat. Okay, where do we move? How do we move positively? And this is the step to affirm to ourselves. And there are 2 things that we can do to affirm to ourselves. Now, the first thing, the things that we tell ourselves. Now, I'm sure that my colleagues have, kind of talked about, in talking about positive psychology, in talking about ways to relax ourselves, there's something about the dialogue that is happening in our minds that are constant, that sometimes bring us down. Now it's one thing sometimes to want to try to change it into positive things. But even if that's not possible, the first thing we got to do is to just realize and just be aware that things that we're telling ourselves sometimes can be really damaging. The first step is just awareness. Okay, so if we just sit down, for example, this is a trick that you can do. Sit down for 20 minutes. Don't do anything. In a room, no social media, no TV, nothing. Just sit down on the floor to yourself. What happens? What is the mind telling you? All these things that the chattering that is going on, it gives you a really great clue as to the kind of worries that you're having. Often these things happen at an unconscious or a subconscious level, meaning to say we're not even aware of it. We're just very kanchong, just going around worrying about a lot of things, but we're not really aware of the dialogue that is going in. Now then, if you're aware of it, how do we mind the mind? So this is a bit tricky, isn't it? It is not about ignoring it. So some of the questions in the Q&A I read, can we just ignore our emotions? No lah, cannot ignore our emotions. We cannot just ignore the mind. If I tell you, you don't think of a monkey, don't think of a monkey. For the next 10 minutes, you probably just think of a monkey. And that's how the mind works. The more you tell it not to do something, the more you try to avoid something, the more it comes to haunt you, right? So the first step is just awareness. When we are aware of it, then we can affirm that certain things are just not true, or certain things are not as important right now in your life. And that's what we can do, okay? To recognize the chattering and let ourselves know, reassure ourselves, affirm to ourselves, hey, this is just the work of the mind, okay? So that is the step, not to ignore it, not to put it away, not to fake positive thoughts. Sometimes that's very difficult, right? But to just be aware and to tell ourselves, are these things that are coming in really true, okay? So now we have anchored, okay? We have affirmed. What can we do? How can we help? And this is where the spirit comes in, okay? How can we ascend? What can we do to go beyond the problems that we're having? And this is crucial. Now, remember that anxiety is there to help us fight off danger, but sometimes it's also a useful tool for us to grow. Yeah, when there are difficult situations in our life, it is an opportunity. We never wish for difficult situations to happen to anyone. We never wish for it, but when it does happen, this is a gift in some way for us to grow, for us to become wiser. Now, the choice we have is to become either wounded or wiser. That's really a choice, okay? Do we want to become wounded by the situation, or do we choose to become wiser? And how do we become wiser? We choose to transcend or go beyond that difficulty. Now, we can only do this if we are anchored, our body is okay, we are connected. If we have affirmed, we realize that our roadblocks in our mind that continue to go on, that we can have a bit of separation from, then we can choose to devote ourselves to doing things that matter. See, now, for example, if you're devoted to certain cause, if you're devoted to your family, if you're devoted to caregiving, in that devotion, difficulties become a bit more bearable. You see, that's when, you're able to transcend. And in doing so, there's a certain liberation. We feel free in doing it. It no longer feels forced. It feels that we become free to do the things that we have to do, but do it in a way that it's a bit more joyful. Yeah, huge difference. And then we can also choose not to solve the problem. Remember, we're talking about curing. We want to solve the problem. We can choose not to solve it, but rather to dissolve into it. Dissolve meaning to say to surrender. Can we really choose the situations in our life? Let's be honest, we really can't. Many things that happen that we really have no control over. That's just the truth. You and I, we have mortal bodies. you know, we will grow older, we will grow sick, one day we'll pass on. And we'll watch this happen to everyone around us. That's just the truth, isn't it? But can we surrender to the situation so that we're not preoccupied in trying to solve this problem? Because these are not things that can be solved. We can only surrender into it, right? And this gives immense freedom to us. When we are able to devote ourselves and to surrender ourselves into the problems and issues in our life, it gives us a sense of tranquility and peace. And that is priceless. Because then no matter the situation outside, there's a certain contentment and peace within us. Okay. So there's a separation now, that which goes on within us is now separate from the situations outside. And isn't that the most amazing thing? That's the most incredible thing that can happen to a human being. Okay. And we all strive towards that. And I just want to end with a bit of a, just to kind of show you a picture. If you look at this picture, it looks dreadful. If you see this on a, if you're heading to work and you see this gem, your heart sinks. Right, you feel so dreadful. Oh dear, it's a terrible, terrible thing. And this same picture, if you look at it a different way, if you look at this picture, it's also a traffic jam. But then here we're looking at it a bit differently. That there are these lights, there's a certain symmetry, there's a certain beauty to it. Okay, it's the same thing. These are still traffic jams, but there's something a bit more beautiful about this picture. It looks less bleak. Okay, there's something a bit more hopeful. There's something a bit more aesthetic about this. All right. And this is when the spirit is being served, when we're able to transcend and surrender to the situation. We can see the beauty and the aesthetics in some of the things which may otherwise seem so dreadful and hopeless. Okay. Yeah. So these are the 3 steps. We anchor. All right. We get the basics right, eat properly, get out to nature, make sure that your environment, you're getting as much natural food and natural environment as possible, connect socially. You affirm yourself by being aware of the thoughts that are coming in and haunting you and reminding yourselves that, hey, this is just not true. And, I can move beyond this, and ascending it. Feed your soul by allowing yourself to surrender into the situations in your life, no matter how terrible. And remember that no matter what difficulties we have, we're trying to become wiser, not just wounded. All right. And so with that, I thank you so much. I want to reiterate that again, we see individuals with varying degrees of severity. The same advice may not really apply to someone who's already in very severe depression and all that. Then a different kind of help is required. And so, if you have someone or family members or yourself, you're suffering a lot, having major difficulties, seek consult, speak to someone. All right. There's no harm in doing that. And with that, thank you so much. I hand the time back to Janine.